Okay, we are live and we should be having someone join us. Danny the Bull should be joining us. I might turn my background off. I think my screen's kind of flickering. Let me see. Okay, I've definitely got the video on somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay, let me exit out that. Okay, I think my screen is flickering. Danny the Bull is going to be joining back in just a minute. He's just changing computer. Maybe it's Randy's head that's causing a problem. Is that better? Oh, I think that is better, actually. No more flickering. Awesome. Okay, so we have some interesting stuff. I'm just going to let some people know who want to join. In about a week or so, maybe more than a week since we did the last live stream. Dr. P posted some cool stuff today. There we go, Fast Company. Okay. Extraordinary growth in emerging business. So let's see, maybe I should just share the tab. I think that's better. Okay, so we got A. Smith. We got Raven, what's up? Justin, Ivan the Terrible, how's it going? We got a lot of people coming in soon. So we got Mr. Danny the Bull as well.
What's going on?
Danny the Bullish on Omi and Vivi.
Yeah, how's it going, man?
Yeah, good. So it's actually been a little while since I live streamed because I think Randy went on his big 69-hour live stream. So I was like, oh, there's no point in me live streaming. I might as well just jump into one Randy's ones, which I think everyone kind of jumped into one point. That's kind of where my name is from, Alfred Khan.
Yeah, you were doing some good stuff on there, man.
Yeah.
Trolling a bit.
So I think what we're going to go through, so we got some topics, right? So Ecomi's revenue going public, that actually gives us some really good data to work with. Mm-hmm. We have the McFarlane digital drop confirmed for December, first week of December. So I've been giving out allow list spots for that. So I just gave out another one to someone for the meme competition. I'll share the meme that they did. It was quite funny. Trevor and I both loved it. We had the Superman #1 drop yesterday. So there's some really interesting figures on that. And just now, literally a few hours ago, Batman comic #1, the second page for that was delivered as an airdrop to people on Hero who held all the panels. And that was surprising because I didn't think they would do that. And now it opens up a whole new debate because this is page #2 from 1940 Batman #1. So it's like Superman #1, but for Batman.
Is that
but it's only one page.
Batman Detective series?
Is
that like the iconic Batman #1?
I think it's the one from 1940, which was it should be It's the one where Batman first makes his appearance as Batman.
Yeah.
But it's only one page from it that they airdropped. So it's really interesting because I have seen CGC grade single pages, like a tiny little piece of AC1 got graded and sold for like $7,000 or something. It was like just a little clipping of the front cover of it that someone just had, and apparently it was authentic. So yeah, that's really interesting. So I think the first thing that we want to go for, so Danny, you must have seen this, right? Dr. Profit shared this. They generated 1.2 billion in revenue, and that's obviously across the lifetime of the application, which makes sense if you kind of factor in, just how much volume they had during the peak bull market. They launched right before the bull market kicked off. So what are your thoughts on this? Because a lot of times, I think if you've seen any of those shows like Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, the ones where they come in and they try and get investment from these guys and they pitch, what their company valuation is based off of their revenue, because, how else are you going to evaluate your company? This gives us a way to kind of make a decent prediction on the valuation. Some people go for like 3 times revenue, some people go for 2 times. What do you think of this figure, and what do you think they should evaluate them as a company?
I think it's incredibly, obviously, it points to them being incredibly successful in their marketplace. But I do think that, I mean, this is trading volume in the secondary market, right? Not necessarily revenue. So I think they've done about 350 million in actual primary sales, gem sales. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, correct.
Now, obviously, they'd also get whatever percentage they get, that goes directly to their pocket from, the secondary market trading.
Yeah.
But for me, I would think that their valuation would stem more from, revenue in, like, it's a marketplace also, right? Like OpenSea's a marketplace and money's changing hands. So this is kind of like a metric that measures the money changing hands on the secondary market. So it's super bullish that, they're doing they've done over $1 billion in trading volume on the secondary market. Speaks to the power of the market and the fervor of the fan base that much money has transacted on the secondary market. But I think their valuation, I would look at it through the lens of the revenue that they're actually generating for them as a company, which is still super bullish, right? You got like almost $500 million. Well, and that's half of that through a bear market, a bear market, and also a large portion of that coming in, early days when they many drops. So either way you look at it, I think it's
okay. I mean, what I'll share with you as well is, let me just pull this up. So this is from Investopedia, and I think this is very important for people to, if they're not familiar, to kind of read up a little bit about this. So the times revenue method, and why I mentioned the revenue is quite important is because it gives us a way to value the company. Now, obviously, this isn't like the most accurate way, but it's commonly used, especially with investors, right? So they've given an example at the bottom. They must have updated this quite recently because they use Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter. So in 2021, Twitter reported an annual revenue of 5 billion, and then it grew by 1.3 billion, right? So Elon Musk announced his intention to acquire Twitter for 44 billion. So that gives us 8.7 times revenue. So at 1.2 billion revenue, if assuming, let's say 8 times that, that is like, what is that, 9.6 billion, I think, just off the top of my head. So nearly 10 billion valuation for VV as of right now. Now, that's obviously if we valued it like Twitter, but what they typically say, if you go kind of near the top, so typically multiple might be 1 to 2 times the actual revenue. However, in some industries, could be less than 1. But a lot of times, we'll see about 2 to 3 times. So I think if we go 3 times and just use their actual revenue, which was like, what was it, like 300 and something million?
Yeah.
So that comfortably puts VV at a $1 billion valuation as a company at kind of like a floor level. And that lines up quite accurately with what I've been told by some of the shareholders in terms of like how much their shareholding had grown by. I was just told randomly that a 2.5% shareholding was worth 25 million. So if you extrapolate that, 2.5% of being worth 25 million, 100% of that would be 1 billion. So that kind of actually matches up. But this was also kind of, after things had like exploded and, we're starting to enter the bear market. So during the bull market, it could have been argued that VV's valuation was even higher. So I think that is definitely a very interesting point is, how do we value this?
Yeah. And, I've done a couple of videos comparing VV to Roblox in terms of revenue growth. And if you look at the growth of Roblox early on, I don't remember the numbers, but I think VV was like on course, if you want to pull it up, year by year revenue for Roblox. Like the VV was like on course or ahead of them. And if you look at extrapolate, Roblox is obviously a couple years ahead of VeVe in terms of development. I think Roblox had like a $40 billion valuation during the bull run. I think they did over $1 billion in revenue.
Yeah, they increased over 100%. Oh, look at that. They increased over 100% year on year.
Yeah, so where were they in their second year?
Okay, so let's see. They're only showing 20. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah. So first year they were 45 million. Then second year they jumped to 335 million. So yeah, they 335 million revenue. So that's what VeVe's on today.
Yeah. And then they did what, 435 and then 924.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility for VeVe to follow that trajectory.
Mm.
And then especially when in the stock market, they value high growth stocks, not on their current value, but on their projected revenue.
Yes.
So when you extrapolate, the numbers out into the future, if VeVe's on that, ascending trajectory, then I think you can make the assumption that they're going to be valued in the multi-billions, especially when markets turn around and more money gets pumped in and they grow out the ecosystem and develop the VeVeverse and sell accessories. Think about how much money they'll make off of microtransactions, which is basically all that Roblox does, right? Is selling little kids $5, hitting parents up for like, $5 a week.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's the position that VeVe's going, is they've realized how valuable it is for people to kind of have tools to create with. Like, even though, you can't upload your own content, you can build votes and things. And the Voteaholics have shown, how popular that has become. I saw people recreating movie posters using the collectibles, and some of them were really good. And I know the Chucky that dropped today, that's going to be a really popular one for creating with, because you can remove the box as well, which is really cool. I think people wanted to do that with the serial killers as well. So maybe they could always go back and update those assets to have a toggle and toggle off for the box as well. Can you sing the Meet the Met song for us live?
Maybe another time,
inside joke.
Yeah, that's the Mets song when you roll up into the stadium.
User-generated content is king in Roblox. Yeah, so that's pretty much the exact same point. Is user-created content. That's a huge appeal for people to go into a platform. I know other platforms are looking to do something similar. McFarlane Toys, I know that they're looking to allow people to kind of, the teaser's been released, so you can kind of create your own vote, decorate out similar to VeVe. I'm sure there'll be like accessories and things similarly as well. Ways to kind of customize your vote. The possibilities are pretty much endless. So I think that will also be really interesting to see.
I know there are a lot of people in that Twitter feed who were trying to like FUD that thread.
The AAA thing.
Yeah, the Dr. Profit tweet. A lot of people, trying to like dispel the numbers, but no matter how you cut it, even if you don't count it as like straight up revenue, you're talking about $1 billion transacted on the market.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it's really interesting because I was talking about this today, right? So I'm going to do a live kind of way to really sink in to people just how well, the revenue and just how high it is. So, for example, right, if we take a look at the Chucky, so let's see, let me see, can I actually log in? Or does it not let me log in? Let's see.
Did you buy the Chucky today?
I don't have it yet, but as of, okay, so let me just check on my mobile app. Actually, I won't even check because more of them will have sold, but we do have, let's see. Chucky.
I think the common or uncommon or whatever was like $19, and the ultra rare was 60 on secondary.
Okay, so this is really interesting, right? Now, last I checked, they had sold in total about 4,500 of them. It's probably they've sold more than that now. because the ultra rare is actually 50% above floor. I don't know what it is now, but in total, $40 each. They had sold 4,500. Now, if you calculate how much that is in terms of dollars that VV made on this Chucky drop, just off of what they had sold at the time, they are still selling, but this was, a few hours ago. They had made $180,000 just in primary market sales. As a figure of comparison, I'll use the most recent drop that people were talking about that I tried to go for as well was the Superman #1, which is considered a grail of grails. I consider it a grail. I think if they had 10x the price of it, made it 100, it still would have sold out. But let's just use the actual facts and figures that we have, right? So Chucky, which is a good IP, made $180,000 for VV at the moment. The Superman comic completely sold out. That generates $30,000 on the primary market. And on the secondary market, because Palm actually provides you with the actual sales data, you can see how many have sold. They're making 10% off of every sale. So on average, the legendaries, if you include the ones that kind of sold at the floor and the current ones, they're going for around about 6,500, 6,000. But let's say on average, they went for 5,000. They sold about, I believe, around 50 of them, something like that. But overall, they've made around about $20,000 to $26,000 additional in terms of secondary royalties. So in total, they've done, let's round it up, right? They've done about $60,000. So Chucky has done $180,000 right now. The Superman #1 has done $60,000 right now. Are we really saying the Chucky is worth 3 times more than the Superman #1, which is an amazing grail? Like, I don't think so personally, but that's just what the facts show right now. And that's down to a plethora of different reasons, but it really goes to show that even in IP that people consider to not be a grail, just, pretty decent, VV revenue numbers are ridiculous when you look at them comparatively. And no other platform right now, in terms of how much money VV makes, comes even close. And with that kind of shows you the potential that they have with how much resources they have to, really kind of utilize and grow. Like, they don't need to sell equity, which is a really important point. A lot of companies, they've had to sell off big chunks of their companies, go into partnerships just to kind of deliver. And they're doing well without having to do that. So, I think when you kind of look at it comparatively, it really puts into perspective just how crazy their revenue numbers are, even in a bear market with drops that people consider to be, like dead drops. So, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that, I study that Puddin' Cheeks spreadsheet. I look at it often, and I don't know of a day recently where they've done under 100,000 in gems. And this is a bear market. And, in January, they were doing like $1 million a day during the peak bull run. But I don't think they've gone under $100,000 a day. And that's even on days when there weren't drops. So their revenue is absolutely pretty incredible, especially with like the sentiment and and everything on secondary is, is obviously plummeted and everything, but they're still selling gems. So yeah, like you said, they're going to have that revenue stream. And if they did, they could sell off 10%, like you said, of the company and just get a nice bed of cash that could fund so many projects.
Yeah, I mean, Shaq just confirmed this. Right now, they've done 200,000 in sales. And just to go back to another example, the Flying DeLorean, which again is decent. It's not like, I wouldn't consider it grail, but it's cool. I bought one on the drop. I didn't stack it, but I bought one. And I remember on the day, they sold $250,000 worth on that one day. And I'm not even including secondary market, because they make 8.5% on that. I'm not including that. I'm only including primary market because it's easy.
That's not to mention gems people purchase for other things that day. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Exactly. So just on the primary market, if they're doing $250,000 on what people consider to be a dead drop because it didn't sell out in a bear market, find me another project that can do $250,000 on like a dead drop. Like it's not their first drop. It's like, their like 2000th drop or whatever it is now of an IP that people, wouldn't consider a grail. They can sell that IP for $250,000 in a bear market. Like I really struggle, especially when you look at comparatively. If Palm could do $60,000 worth in sales, and I'm including the secondary sales on that because they actually provide that data. Vivi doesn't really provide that, or it's not available yet, however you want to look at. If they were able to do I'm sure Palm could have raised a lot more if they had set that price to 100. I'm sure it still would have sold out. So
or increase their additions. Yeah.
I'm sure if they increase the additions, increase the price, whatever it is. But I think Palm, they're doing similar to what other projects are doing, like those free mint projects where they give it to you at a cheap price and they rely on the secondary sale volume. But for whatever reason, people just pump the price of it straight away from 10 to about 6,000. And now they're not really selling that well. So Palm's not getting that secondary revenue. Like they've only been about 50 sales of the legendary at most, I think, around that figure. So the volumes kind of hemorrhage because of how quickly the price shot up due to the speculation and hype.
Yeah.
So whereas Vivi, because a lot of these pieces, the prices are so low, the sales volume of them is high. So they're constantly making that, little 2.5%, little 8.5% constantly. Yeah. And that's what I think is better for a company. Is better to do 100 sales of $10 than to do one sale of $1,000. Like, I think that is a lot more beneficial for a company, and it's better for the market because you're getting more individual transactions, more volume. You don't have to rely on just that one person to buy your bags off you. And that's how we're going to grow, right? Is any project that is aiming for mass adoption, they need that model where they're catering towards loads of people buying loads of like inexpensive things, as opposed to trying to get a few whales who are just going to buy a couple of really, really expensive things for like 100 ETH or whatever. That's how I think the market grows.
Yeah, I think that, Palm, it's interesting because, had this dropped on Vivi, those would be selling for $5,000 to $6,000. They're undervalued, right? And when you look at the number of additions and the level of grail, I think it should be going that legendary should be over $10,000. And right now, if Palm were to drop, something like Chucky, they wouldn't be able to move it because they don't have that strong base, and it doesn't have that. And the reason why Superman isn't yet at that, $10,000 is because they don't have that strong foundation and buy-in from people, like where people know like this is a legit long-term sustainable platform. They're still they're still building. And from what I see, a lot of people are happy with their bat cowls, the utility that they're provided. But I'm not really familiar with, I see a lot. I was looking in their marketplace and seeing some of the other drops, Harley Quinn comics and some other thing. I don't know what they were like. They look like disk drives or something.
Oh, yes, the fandom discs, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not really familiar with those things and how well they perform. But, it's important for that platform to build out. I think they can because they have so many other Grail comics that they can they're going to legitimize as long as they improve the functionality of the web app and, they keep dropping those hot comics. I think over time they'll keep building. But it speaks to Vivi's success.
This is a good question because I've spoken about this with a few people, right? And which company can buy equity in Vivi? So this isn't to buy the whole company, but to buy a stake in the company. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm very, very confident it would be a financial institution, specifically a type of bank that will buy a share into Vivi. Because David has a lot of connections within surprisingly, people think he's only connected with collectors, but he's very, very heavily connected within the financial markets as well. Like he knows people within banks and hedge funds, like quite high up. And those are the type of people, surprisingly, banks, like hedge funds, they will buy equity into very speculative assets as well. A lot of people maybe didn't realize JP Morgan was buying Bitcoin a long, long time ago. Even when they were kind of, fudding it, they were like, this Bitcoin thing's a scam. They were buying, and this was back in like, even before I got into crypto, like before 2016. So a lot of these institutions, they are actually investing into NFTs, which is why Vivi wants to do KYB ASAP, is because they need to purchase into this market in a compliant way, because there's a lot of regulations like coming in, and they need to protect themselves as well, because it's an unregulated market. So with KYB, it's a way of getting in with a bit of assurance for their clients' money. So I believe it would be a financial institution most likely to purchase equity, because then they get exposure to the NFT market while still also having the protections of what the traditional financial markets will offer you, because when you buy equity in a company, it comes with certain protections as well, whereas if you buy an NFT, it doesn't really come with the same protections.
Do you think they would have to wait till regulation, or do you think it would come pre-regulation?
Good point. I think with KYB it would come pre-regulation. I'm only saying that because I know Brock, for example, there was a hedge fund, the Singaporean one, same one that David has spoken about. They offered to buy Brock's whole collection actually off of him for it was like double digits in Bitcoin. Like it was a lot of money back then.
Is VV collectibles?
Yeah, they offered to buy his whole collection off him. He's made it public, so I can talk about it. I'm not giving away some secrets. But yeah, the hedge fund offered to buy Brock's entire sub 100 collection. This was back like when we were still in season 1, by the way. So back when we were still in season 1, the Todds, the Resos, all that stuff. They offered to buy a sub 100 collection off him for, I think at the time, it was $300,000. It was like double digit in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was like 25, 30K. So yeah, they offered a good, a big chunk of money, but he didn't take it. He preferred to keep his VV collection.
What people don't understand is how much that amount of money will move the entire market. It doesn't take a lot of money to move the whole secondary market. Even if you get like couple $1 million pumped in there, which is very feasible, like you said, with these funds and banks and things like this, even whales, it could really move everything.
Oh, SoCal Omihomi says, hi, Jeff. So interesting story, right? Myself. Oh, Danny, are you going to be at Decon?
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So I'm going to be staying. So Jeff is hosting us. So it'll be myself, Cavell, Kyle Wilson, and Johnny Dunn. We're all going to be hanging out together, and Jeff's going to be our host, which is really cool.
Oh, and in his house?
Well, he's kind of sorted out accommodation for us.
Nice.
Yeah, so shout out to Jeff, really cool guy.
That's pretty dope. I'm gonna have to crash.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
I'm staying with Daniel Lee. We rented a hotel room.
Apparently 7 more sold whilst I'm pumping the Chuckies. I'm assuming he's talking about the Chuckies.
Yeah.
This was really interesting. So what this is referring to is the syringe on the death. They removed it, and people argue it was because Vivi is against like weaponry and drug paraphernalia and all that. But on the Chucky, they've left this blood-soaked knife. So where
was the syringe?
The syringe. So the death collectible from season 1. Yeah. So her hand, she's supposed to be holding a syringe, but they've removed it. And I tried to explain the reason why I believe this happens is because I understand, because Venkatesh, his studio, they built a lot of the Vivi assets. So I have a bit more understanding into how the modeling and stuff works. And what they do is they get like the 3D scan of the physical. And if the physical comes detached in separate parts, then the scan will also be in separate parts, and they have to digitally reassemble it. So what I believe happens is similarly to the Harley Quinn. So the Harley Quinn Red and Black, I think season 2, the set 2 one, she's got a hole in her leg. And the reason she's got a hole in her leg is because a model gun is supposed to go in there, but there's no gun. So the model literally has a hole in her leg. So what I believe is the syringe on the death, possibly that might be a detachable thing. And so that comes separately. And so when they 3D scanned the model, they scanned the syringe separately, but they probably just didn't include it for whatever reason. So in that case, I don't think it's a case of them not wanting a syringe or knives or whatever in the app. I think it was more so a technical thing where because the model comes disassembled, they reassemble it. And a good example also is the Kenneth Rocafort Superman. So you know the first Superman that we got where he's kind of like that. That one comes disassembled. So what you basically have to do is you have to assemble it, like attach legs in and all of that. But digitally, they have to do that as well. And so if you zoom in, there's like a little gap, which is why I keep making fun of the Superman. I keep saying he has a detached leg just to like annoy Trevor. So yeah, that's how the process works. So because he has the knife, I think that kind of confirms that it was never an issue of Vivi not allowing like weaponry on the app, because we still had like this rabbit here actually. He's holding a knife.
Yeah, that's correct.
And this is on Vivi. So I don't think it was a weapon case.
Yeah, I was happy to see Chucky drop because I'm a big horror fan. Now I'm really wanting some Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and Freddy.
Yeah, I mean they've got some a lot more stuff that can come out with weapons, and the Joker, is it the Jim Lee one? I think he's got a gun as well.
He does, yeah. It's like a long gun.
I don't think it was ever an issue. That's that. I'd like to see what Disney down the line. Oh, to sell to Disney. Yeah, I think they might have changed their opinion on that because there's too much conflict of interest selling to one company who is also a licensor, because that would dilute value. Because Disney, I don't know if they'd want to continue, if they would like I can see Disney buying a stake in Vivi, but I don't see Disney taking over Vivi, like, because it's too risky for them as well. Right now, the current model, they make money and it's zero risk because they're not managing the platform. Vivi's managing it, so they don't have to deal with any regulations or customer service or any of that nonsense. BlackRock, Grayscale. Grayscale is a big one in the crypto space. I remember they had a ton of XRP right before the lawsuit hit, and then they sold all of it.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a He-Man drop. I came across that. Someone mentioned it, Cryptoys. I saw the advert for it. He-Man's fairly OG. The popular
He-Man is Hasbro, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Future revenue growth for Vivi keep going down. I think it's important to note, right, that this is kind of like a similar situation to, how in news headlines, news reporters are always saying Bitcoin is crashing. But when you look at the chart, it's like, yeah, Bitcoin went from $10 to like $10,000, and now it's crashed to $5,000. But compared to where it started from, it's still up way more than anything else in that same time frame. And I think Vivi went through the same thing because it went through such unrealistic, crazy, ridiculous growth that you never see this kind of growth in a company ever. Like, because it went because in startups, you have to remember Vivi's a startup still. Most startups in their first 2 years probably don't make any money. Like that's just what it is, right? Startups usually don't generate any revenue until maybe third or fourth year in, then they start making money. And they have to sell equity and stuff just to keep themselves running, right? And a lot of the people working just work on sweat equity. They don't pay themselves until the company's profitable. Like Vivi was not just profitable, but it was competing and beating well-established companies in this, like in the digital space. And when you go from zero startup level to like revenue that a lot of companies never see in their lifetime, just because you come down like 50%, you're still beating 99.99% of companies out there. Like, they're not even touching you, like, with how much success you have. Like, that's why it feels like they've crashed. But it's similar to Bitcoin, where when it went from $10 to $1,000 and it came down to like $300, people said it crashed, but it's still up 30x, and it still made way more gains than anything else at the time. So it's about like zooming out and looking at it with perspective. And I think that comparison with the Superman #1 comic and how much revenue that's generated so far, I think that kind of like helps to kind of put this into perspective with, even in a bear market, even with, IP that's not like the best IP, like they still generate a lot of revenue, which is like mind blowing to see.
People confuse, the decline in value or prices in the secondary market with the success of the company. They're still making their money. it's, the secondary market might be hurting, but they're still, like I said, I don't think they've done a day under $100,000
That's a
recently.
very, very good point. Yes, I think that's a really good point to kind of highlight is just because the VV secondary market relatively is down, like maybe you bought a Walt for like 30K and now it's down to like, 3K.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're down 90%. But as a company, VV is still doing six figures in revenue every day. Like they're still killing it as a company. And eventually it's going to get to a point where they can justify a very good valuation where they can sell like 10% to a partner. And anyone who's rich enough to buy 10% of VV is going to be a very, very big partner. Like I'm talking like, like it could be grayscale level, or it could be like someone who can help directly, like might be Ubisoft or Nintendo, some big game kind of gaming company, whatever it is, whoever it is, like that money that they raise, that's like when VV really kicks off, because a lot of companies, just to kind of compete, they have to sell a lot of equity to get that money, because how else are they going to get that money? They can't get that money because they haven't really got much of a product to sell. So they have to sell equity. But VV's made so much from their product that when they do finally choose to sell that equity, it's going to be easily in the, they can do hundreds of millions for their equity. And that hundreds of millions, what can they do with that? Just think about all the things you can do. Like they could build out the VVverse. They could host like, dozens of events globally at the same time. They could afford to really expand their dev team, their marketing team, pay mass YouTube influencers on a entire, like they could do like a whole shilling campaign if they wanted to. Like they have the resources to then do all of that stuff. And if they time it well with like a bull market where marketing has a big effect because there's more eyes on your product, because in a bull market people are looking for this stuff, then that's the formula for where Omi, VV, all of this stuff explodes. And that's exactly what's happened with ADA when it exploded. That's what happened with XRP when it exploded. That's what happened with Engine. Engine was a big one. Like they timed it perfectly right when, the whole kind of Web3 NFT space started to kick off. Axie, AXS token, I remember when that thing was worthless, and then Play to Earn came and they timed it perfectly with the pandemic. So people in the Philippines, they were like earning from home and it just took off. That's the formula that they need, and that's when I think it's going to like really kick off.
Yeah, and the thing with Omi is that it backs a real business. It's not like some abstract thing that's hard to understand and hard to quantify. When you talk about ADA, you're talking about blockchain. People can't wrap their minds around it. There's not a real way to measure. You have TVL, you have active wallets, you have NFTs minted, but we still don't really have a definitive way to value, blockchain and a bunch of projects. It's Puddin' Cheeks quantifies the value every day in the spreadsheet. You can see exactly the money they're generating and the success. So there's no other coin, to my knowledge, that's tied to a business like this. And Dan says this often. They have one foot in the real world and one foot in the crypto world. And it's a very unique business model.
Exactly. Superman's leg. Noah Will says, what's up with the constant delays on OEP articles? So that's a very good question, actually, because it was supposed to come out at the end of Q3, start of Q4, like kind of around that week. And it has been, we're a month into Q4 now. We've just got November, December left. And Reese did speak a bit about this on Randy's live stream with us. So for those who don't know, Reese mentioned that the article is pretty much complete. They're just getting the final sign off from everyone. So with this kind of stuff, he can't just post it. He needs to get sign off from Dan and David. They're happy. He needs to get sign off from the CTO that everything makes sense. It's deliverable. What's being put out is real. It's not fact. It's not fictional. They need to get sign off from the legal team, because obviously they can't say certain things or talk about. And I learned a lot about this from Venkatesh, because he's an advisor for Ecomi, right? And he really kind of opened up my eyes with how predatory these regulators are. They are like sharks. So, for example, if in the article Reese used the word treasury, or he used the word dividends, the regulators will come after VV straight. Like they will come after you straight away. They'll start auditing you, investigating you for like, potentially selling unregulated securities, deceiving people. Partly because VV has such success, they tend to go after people who make a lot of money because it makes sense, because then they get a lot of money. But also, they are looking for people in the space who are kind of, tripping up. And the reason I said that is because one of the things that you're not allowed to do, or you're not supposed to do, is use financial terms in this space. So that's why they're never going to refer to you as investors. They're going to refer to you as collectors, because you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to use the word treasury. If you want to talk about a system where an asset, I don't think we're even allowed to say the word asset. That's why we're going to say digital collectible. Say the word asset. Yeah. So if you want to store a digital collectible in something, you can't call it a treasury. You have to call it a vault, or something that's not got a financial tie. You can't say dividends. You have to say airdrop. Like, you're not allowed to use finance, because as soon as you start using financial terms, that's a red flag for regulators, and they're going to start investigating you. So this kind of stuff, like, the legal team has to read word for word. What you're doing isn't going to get the company in trouble. And for us, that's perfect for us, because I have seen so many projects get into legal problems, get into trouble. The founders don't want to deal with it. They end up rugging and leaving, and the project kind of dies. I'm very, very happy that they're delaying this stuff and making sure that they've like crossed all their T's, dotted their I's. They've really kind of protected themselves, and more importantly, as importantly, they're protecting us, because that's why I feel confident kind of putting money to Omi, putting money to VV. Is unlike, so I went through that traumatic experience of XRP, where I woke up one day and there was a lawsuit and my bag was down like 70%. I feel more confident I'm not going to relive that with VV and Ecomi, because they are proving that they are being really, really, really careful. And there are a lot of credible projects out there, which I still have my doubts about, that, they're doing things in a gray area. And I feel like they're not protecting themselves. I won't name which project, but they're well-known projects. But I feel more confident personally with the way that they're approaching this. And so, the OUP article is going to come out. It is complete, so at least we know that. But it's that kind of final step sign-off stage. So I think it should be with us this quarter at least. I don't think it takes 2 months to sign off with the legal team, but I'll let them make the amendments that they need to, just to make sure it's they don't need to go back and change anything.
Do you think they're also stalling until there's a little more clarity, or buying some time?
Yeah. Usually when they delay things, it's for either more clarity or they find a better way to do it. So, for example, they delayed the VV app by over a year. And the reason they delayed it by over a year is originally the app was supposed to be 2D collectibles, and it would use augmented reality with a marker. So you would have your Ecomi wallet, and on the back would be the Ecomi logo. And so the 2D collectibles would sit on that, and it would look for that marker. Then they changed it to 3D collectibles, and they changed the AR system to not use a marker anymore. It just uses normal spatial mapping. So you scan your room with the phone like you do, and then you can place a collectible, rather than having to look for a specific image to place the collectible on top of, because that's kind of annoying. And it's, 3D AR is better than 2D AR personally. I prefer the 3D over the 2D. But because they delayed the app for a year, they were able to make that huge upgrade. And I think personally, if they had chosen to do 2D collectibles, it wouldn't have been as popular as the 3D AR. I think the 3D AR was a huge benefit. And so they've kind of been quite public about this, is when they tend to delay things, they want to add more to it. And another good example is MTL. So they had a partner originally, there were some issues. The partner didn't cover all regions as well. So some people would have been cash out, some people wouldn't have been able to cash out. So, they delayed it. They got a better partner, and they surprised us with crypto cash out as well as fiat cash out, which we weren't expecting. They didn't say that was going to happen. Obviously, they had to then turn it off because of, money laundering issues. They needed to add more checks in place for that. But I believe they're going to re-enable that with crypto pay in as well as crypto payout. They're going to turn both on together once, that's all kind of got the compliance and everything sorted out. But normally, the point is, they tend to, if they delay things by a lot, it's because they probably found a better way to do it, and they want to make sure that they're delivering the best possible way to the user, so that they don't have to go back and retroactively upgrade things later on. Like they deliver something good from the start rather than something that's not good and then they try and update it later on. Oh yeah, weapons rack had weapons.
That's right. Yeah, it's called the weapons rack.
Yeah.
What's up,
Maxwell says, "Yo, Danny, you okay? Reckon Omi will go any lower? Oh, what do you reckon about Omi price? Like, do you think this is the bottom, or do you think we could go lower?"
I mean, I think that the bottom, happened when it brushed up against, almost went to that. I don't know if did it go 000 or it nearly went 000?
It wicked to 000 on a one exchange. Was it Bitmart or something? Like one of those exchanges that has like no volume. It wicked to 000 and then.
Yeah, I think that I don't think it goes to 000. I can see, obviously until all markets recover and until there's clarity in terms of the macro environment, I think we go sideways, possibly lower, but not substantially lower, in my opinion. Could always be wrong. Who knows? But, I do think that the bottom is in for Omi in particular.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, because I'm learning to trade more from God's Entry, and God's Entry is like literally his name gives it away. Like he's a god level trader, right? And he's a very, very big Omi bull as well. He's made a good amount. I won't say how much he's made, like in the trading in the markets, but he's a very, very like he's legit. That's all I'll say, right? And so he's very positive in Omi, and he told me if it wasn't for the macro, if it wasn't for the rates, having to potentially, go up way more than what they are right now, if it wasn't for those reasons, he said the bottom of the market would be in right now.
And part of me thinks that the bottom is in for crypto, because I think we had our capitulation early, forced by, the Terra Luna debacle. And then, there were forced liquidations and cascading effects. And those are typically signifiers and markers of a bottom. And I think that the stock market plummeted after the crypto market, and crypto, Bitcoin held that $18,000 level. I don't know how much more they can actually raise rates, and keep the financial systems from completely collapsing, especially in Europe. So I think there's going to be a pivot at some point, or slowdown in the rate hikes.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree entirely. Like, they definitely need to continue increasing rates, but if it wasn't for that reason, if there wasn't that kind of crazy macro pressure, I'd be like, yeah, I think the bottom is in as well. But I am not against Omi going lower. I really do want it to go lower, because I said before, I've got like 50K in liquidity that I am being patient with. I'm really hoping it goes lower so I can literally grab 50 million Omi. That's going to bring me very, very close to that 100 million level. I'd be very, very close.
I don't have that patience, man. I don't know how you can sit on that. Dude.
Yeah. I mean, so this is a very interesting one, right? So today, right before the space, I just got airdropped this. So I got airdropped page number 2 of Batman number 1, 1940. So the OG Batman comic, you can see like, Bruce Wayne's parents got killed. And then, he eventually becomes Batman in that last panel. So this is really interesting, right? Because on IMX, this obviously is a token that represents page number 2 from the comic. And also IMX tokens are on ETH. So, if we talk about like first on the blockchain, blah, 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 this is the first Batman comic page on Ethereum. There is a Batman comic that currently exists, which is the Legacy Cow comic. So I own that as well. I own that just because I think there is value in having the first Batman comic on the blockchain. But obviously Palm is not ETH. This is the first one of a page, and it's the first representation of a real life historical comic, because the Bat Cow comic is a new comic. Like, it was designed and created by the Bat Cow community. They voted on it. But it's not like a old comic that came out, from the 1940s, for example, like this one. But this is a page from it, right? So I was basically asking, what do people think? Like, as a single page from a comic, it is on ETH, which means you can also bridge it to OpenSea. So you can actually have the first Batman comic page on OpenSea as well. The fact that this is currently going for $5.50 for the first Batman comic book page on a blockchain, for $5.50. When the Superman #1 comic, the whole entire comic of it, went for like thousands, we've got a single page going for $5. That then raises a question like, what is it that people value? Because the token for Superman 1 unlocks the ability to read it in the e-reader, whereas this gives you a single page that you can read, not the whole comic. So is the Superman 1 overvalued, or is a single page undervalued? Or is it because Hero is predominantly trading cards and this is the page as a trading card? It's still the whole page. And it says, like the metadata would say page #2 of Batman #1, like, that metadata is there, it's public, or it's on a Mutascan. You can even see this image on a Mutascan. What is it that people value? Because I'm seeing a huge price difference of a single page as opposed to a full comic, like larger than I would, and larger than you'd probably see in like the CGC grading world. Like, single page graded comics compared to the full comic, it wouldn't be this much of a percent difference. So what do you reckon about this page comic? Like, is it something that people would hold significant value because it's the first Batman comic page? Or is it like, people just aren't going to care about it?
I think we're going to find out. I'm not sure right now, but it's an interesting question in this brand new space, is what creates value and drives value. And I think what we're seeing is that the platform plays into it to a large degree, because you have the Superman comic, which I think comics and crypto, I'm not a comics. I don't have a background in comics, right? I think comics and crypto said that if this were on Vivi, this would be the top comic, hands down.
Oh yeah.
So, you've got that on another platform selling substantially lower. I think we're learning that the platform does play a part into it. And if you look at like baseball cards, it's kind of the same way. You've got Topps, which is that, the mainstay and the one with the longest and most storied history. And then you've got others that have come and gone along the way, like Donruss, and you've got Flair. And if you have the same player, a rookie card, the Topps versus the Donruss versus the Flair, the Topps holds more value, and the Donruss and the Flair still hold value, for those historic players, but the Topps one is the one that people want the most. So I think that's going to be mirrored in this space. And I think a project like Hero, I don't know whether it's going to, I'm not too familiar with it, but if, something that seems to me like it could, live or die, this one pager might just, end up being a footnote in history.
Yeah, I completely agree with the platform, because I've noticed that a lot of the IP, if it's the same IP on Vivi and the same IP exists elsewhere, in terms of the dollars spent, people will spend a lot more dollars on that IP in the Vivi platform as opposed to elsewhere. And I've seen this time and time again with Wax, with Rika, etc., Quid, whatever it is. If that same IP drops somewhere and it drops on Vivi, it will do magnitudes, like, especially with the artists, like Frank Kozik, for example, his Labbits on OpenSea, they don't do anywhere near as well as the Labbits did on Vivi. Like, that stuff generated probably more revenue than he's gotten from any other digital platform combined. Just off of his Vivi, I reckon. So yeah, the platform definitely makes an impact, and we can see that.
Yeah, but it's definitely interesting. Everyone argues over first on blockchain, and everything is like first on blockchain. This is the first horror piece on blockchain, the first whatever on blockchain. But but it's going to take time to really sort things out. And you can only, I think Steve Jobs said, you can only put the dots together looking backwards.
NFT Hero says, Danny, the bull is the best.
Thanks, NFT
I agree.
Hero. Appreciate you.
In your opinion, what is easy to invest in VV for long term? Does buying OMI token mean equity? Oh, this is a very, very good question, because I spoke about this today. So if you're buying a token which the price of it is directly influenced by the performance of the company, that can make it an unregistered security, but it would depend on how. So, for example, if the company doing well means they airdrop you tokens as a dividends, that definitely would make you a security. If you, as a token holder, get rights on voting in the direction of the company, again, that would make you, the token a security. Like, you can't give voting rights to token holders, only if it's like equity, right? So it's a very interesting point, but as long as it's used as a transactional currency, and as long as they choose to voluntarily burn a fraction of it, and as long as they give you staking benefits, which give you in-app bonuses, they don't give you free stuff, like they're not giving you collectibles for staking, or they're not giving you more tokens to stake, then it's okay. Like, transactional currencies are fine. That's the whole point of a utility token. Using the token in an app is fine. But the fact that the app is backed by a massively successful company that is going to continue to grow, that in itself, just that sentiment is going to drive the value of the token up, just that alone. So in a way, yeah, the success of VV is going to affect the price of OMI, but it's not going to be affecting it as a direct result of the company doing something. It's going to be more to do with everything around the app gaining benefit, or you having benefit within the app for using the token and holding the token. And that, from their legal team, from, how the SEC views it, because they tend to use the Howey test a lot, which I think they're going to change, they're going to modernize their system. As far as from that perspective, they seem to be okay. Most utility tokens, they do what VV does, obviously without the massive success that VV has had. So people will question it as well. With VV not being an American company, is it a little protected from US regulators? This is, again, another good question, because they registered Ecomi as a Singaporean entity, and I've looked into the regulations of this. So a lot of crypto projects, they tend to register in Singapore or Dubai, these places with pretty good taxes, but also quite open to, crypto. They have got a better framework in place. So I know a project, they tried to get registered in Singapore as well. And they said, if you try and register as a security token, there's like a 2-year wait. If you try and register as a utility token, it's like a couple of months, because it's much easier to get in as a utility token, because there's less regulations around being a utility token. Because if you're a security token, you have to go through, like the process of actually, how a security would work, for example. There's a lot more regulation around securities as opposed to utility tokens. So the problem with that is you need to make sure your token has utility. And so this is kind of like the bit where I think Ecomi would need to kind of, I guess kind of argue the point that they are sticking by what they said. They didn't say they're going to be a utility token just to get the benefits of being in Singapore and bypassing the whole, having to wait 2 years of getting approved. They need to prove that this was part of their plan. They were going to execute on it, and now they've executed on it. So they need to show that evidence. And they do have that evidence. When the app first launched, OMI was a utility token. You could use OMI in the app to buy things. So the intention was always there. They had executed on it. So I think they are protected. And they have actively been working on the OUP. So I'm sure they've got plenty of evidence. If regulators ever want to see, they can show them all the emails and documents and meeting notes, all of that stuff, development. So I say, being in Singapore does give them protection. But obviously, if the SEC said no more VV, no more OMI, then there would be no more VV, no more OMI in the US.
Right.
Same with XRP. The Binance US delisted it, but you can still get XRP, outside of the US, for example. It's not like a global delisting. It's only in the US.
Yeah, it's really not clear yet on what's going to happen. But Library Coin is another case that's waiting to be decided, and that's a smaller coin that the SEC went after, I think, with the intention of setting precedent, so that so they could use in the Ripple case, and I think that case is ready to be decided. But the judges, Coin Bureau said that he thinks that the judge is holding off because he doesn't want to set precedent. He's waiting for the Ripple case. So I think once that happens, once we have precedent, hopefully Ripple wins that lawsuit. There's going to be a shakeup in elections and politicians moving in and out, and the whole landscape is going to change. But I think as we move further and further ahead, policymakers like the guy in the UK, right, that new prime minister.
Oh, Rishi Sunak, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to get more and more people like that who understand the space, who have bags in the space, and will want to protect their bags, right? So you got someone like Ted Cruz over here, a Republican candidate who I don't like, but I know he's a bag holder, and he's pro crypto. And as time goes on, you're going to get more and more people who understand the space. The older people will get aged out, and hopefully we get some level-headed regulation.
There's no way it would take this long to put out. I mean, we've kind of discussed this already. They're trying to be as careful as possible. I mean, when you realize just how many things they take into consideration, like it takes a long time. Like you want to make sure the information you put out is right the first time. You don't want to put it out then change it or realize, hey, we're going to get sued because we used the word treasury in our article. This is a page. Yeah, so I did ask this because the asset itself doesn't exist on a blockchain, so it's just a token. And if the page is on a card, they can always, like the card isn't part of the blockchain. Like that's the point. So
what's interesting also on HRO, isn't there the Action comic cover?
Yes, they have. So that's partly why I also asked it, because I guarantee you, if let's say Palm drops AC1, right?
Yeah.
If you get that token, and if you get the token from Hero with the AC1, and if you put them side by side, and if you compare only what's on the blockchain, I guarantee you people would not be able to tell the difference, because the only thing that exists on the blockchain is that token ID, as well as the kind of transaction history, stuff that's immutable. That token is going to point to an asset that exists on in Palm's case, it's like a centralized server that, has a database of the comics, and you view it through, their e-reader. And so the token allows you access to that e-reader, basically. Like the comic isn't on the blockchain or anything. And the same thing, with like the VV comics, they have their own, they're hosted on AWS. So the file kind of gets sent to your mobile device, and then you can read it that way. Like the comics don't live on the blockchain. And as, technology develops, as blockchain technology develops, maybe we'll get to a point where we can have these files on chain, because right now, very few things exist on chain, like CryptoPunks that exists on chain. But that's only because, as you can tell, CryptoPunks, the file size is very, very small. Like it doesn't cost a lot of gas to move them around and whatnot. So, you wouldn't want to pay like $1,000 just to send one VV collectible somewhere because of how big the file size is. So it's going to be interesting to see what people value most. But clearly from what I've discussed, a lot of people will value the off-chain asset and what it is, which is also why so many people argue that VVFAs, let's say if, here's an example, right? If VV decides to do a 3D Hello Kitty, a lot of people are going to say that's the FA of Hello Kitty, because a 2D one on Rika doesn't count because it's 2D. A lot of people out there value the asset and what the asset is. And I've seen this multiple times. For example, Wonder Woman, FA of Wonder Woman actually dropped on Palm as a floppy disk. But a lot of people said that does not count because that's a floppy disk. The VV1 counts because the asset is a premium 3D. digital collectible. And that again goes to show that people, they care about the off-chain asset. And if people really cared about FA of, AC1, for example, right? A token that represents AC1 is on Hero, but people would not say that's AC1 because it's not, the asset itself isn't a complete comic, it's just a cover. So it's very interesting to see like what it is that most people value, what is it that most people are willing to put the most money behind. And so I can kind of see that at least VV's assets as well as McFarlane Digital, people will value these because the assets represent something that's quite close to a physical statue, something 3D premium collectible, as opposed to something that might be just a 2D PFP, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. And they value the platform itself.
Yeah. So I wouldn't consider it FA comic, but I consider it maybe FA comic page, because you do get gradings of just a single page. Like some people will grade just a single page because that's all they got left. Someone graded like a tiny piece of the front cover of AC1. I don't know how they found that, but apparently it's worth $7,000 for a little piece of the front cover. How many of them? I think it's 3,700. 3,745 from VV Las Vegas. Yeah, so it is quite scarce, I'd say. It's very low. VV is more valuable to me because if we believe in a metaverse, then having NFTs that's a good point. Is the VV NFTs are going to be obviously interoperable within the VV verse. That's kind of the whole point. So if you believe in the metaverse concept and technology, then yeah, that's fantastic. And I spoke about this very briefly, but when I was in Dubai, a lot of the VCs there, so venture capitalists, basically guys with a lot of money, they are obsessed with the metaverse concept. Like they're willing to throw whatever money at any tokens that are linked to a metaverse. Like, they were already going very heavy in Sandbox, in Decentraland. And I guarantee you, when Omi becomes fully classified as a metaverse token, they're going to be looking at that as well, especially because it's licensed and they love the licensed stuff there. Like there's a video of some rich guy in Dubai, actually. He owns like the $5.3 million Superman #1. There's a video of that floating
I
around.
saw that on TikTok.
Yeah.
We got to get that guy in VV.
David Yu is on Spaces with Alex. Oh, okay, so we can hop into that in like a couple of minutes. But what I did also want to touch on is, so McFarlane Digital, they have their first drop confirmed. It's going to be the first week of December. Oh, yes, here we go. 1st of December. Oh, yeah, 1st of December. So a month from now. And coincidentally, we have a winner for an allow list spot for McFarlane Digital. So I've been giving away allow list spots because this drop is going to be extremely popular. I can tell you now, based off of the stuff that's coming. People are going to want these allow list spots. But Blitz did this meme, which Trevor and I really liked. So they've taken like a clip from Zelda. My responsibility is catching up with me after playing video games all day. And then you've got like Black Adam, and then you got Link there, like kind of screaming. So the whole contest was basically to make a Black Adam meme. And so this one, like, definitely, this one, Blitz got that allow list for sure.
What is the first drop is Spawn?
So I'm going to clear up a bit of, I think I mentioned it, but people think McFarlane only has Spawn stuff. If you go on, so they have a lot more than Spawn, I'll tell you that. And if you're wondering, probably check out their website, McFarlaneToys.com. You can see some of the IP that they work with. And then I'll leave it at that.
So will they be dropped? Do they have the rights to drop all the toys that he's made?
So there is a process where they have to kind of renegotiate the licensing agreement, because obviously the licensing was only to do with physical toys. But McFarlane's been around since 1994, I believe. And they've been doing toys for some of these licensors for many, many years. So they've got a very good relationship in place already. So if you look at some of their longest standing partners, for example, DC, they've worked with DC for a long, long time. I mean, McFarlane essentially owns DC Direct, right? So you can assume reasonably that they will do DC stuff. But if you look at which IPs they've been working with for a long time, you could probably work out which ones, they probably drop as 3D, digital collectibles, because obviously they got that relationship in place. A sensible conversation. Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting, like, because I like having like these kind of like chilled out kind of rational discussions, but then at the same time I do like jumping on Twitter Spaces and just listening to people like kind of like just talk random like like hype up things and like like this is better than that because I say so, that kind of stuff. Like it's enjoyable, but like at the same time we do need to also kind of stick grounded in facts as well, like have as much data as possible, just so people don't go carelessly throwing money around and getting burned and then coming back and complaining. Like you want to give people as much information so they can make a rational choice for themselves at least. Would you get Legendary Superman Palm NFT or SRA 15? Oh, I don't know, actually. That's a very tough one. What would you do?
Man, that's really tough. I mean, at the current prices, I don't have the money for either, so I'm gonna say neither right now. But damn, I don't know. I think maybe a Legendary Superman, but because I do think it's undervalued, you're betting on the fact that Palm will be around and solidify themselves in this space. I think they have more ammunition coming in terms of the Grail comics that they're dropping, which are going to create a lot of excitement. That Action #1 is coming, Batman #1, first appearance Joker. So that these are coming, and these are going to help solidify them. So again, if they can just improve the user experience, and I think that they will get a large part of the VV community will, and it'll be like a Topps Donruss thing again, if you like baseball cards or whatever, a Topps Panini right now. So I do think that Legendary Superman is solid, but it's of course dependent.
I think I would get the Legendary Superman as well. One thing that would really sell me is because the comic is 2D, it's easier to host externally, right? What would sell me is if they had the pages and the token pointed to the pages, hosted externally, kind of similar to like, how we have like the kind of PFP projects, but you're pointing to the pages, and then you could then render the pages in like a browser or something. That to me would sell me more, because right now the token is dependent on an e-reader, which you access through, the website. If the e-reader goes down or the website goes down, like you can't access your Superman asset, right? So I would like it a lot more if they kind of ripped out the whole kind of e-reader aspect and maybe changed it so that the pages and the comic are hosted as like, maybe separate files, and then they kind of realigned like in a browser or something. Like, I don't know.
But you said that VV comics are the same?
VV comics are a bit different. So what they do is you're not exactly, well, yeah, they have like their own inbuilt app version of an e-reader in the app, but that file is kind of being downloaded to the device, and then it's kind of being rendered that way. The stuff on Palm right now is you have the token, and in combination with this new platform they've kind of set up called DC3. It's like the DC e-reader for Web3. You then access that. But if that e-reader goes down or if the website goes down, you can't access your asset. So
which is similar though, like, if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can't download the file.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, if you don't have internet, or if the VV app is under maintenance, you can't access your VV collectibles.
Access them.
So it's similar. But obviously with VV, that's not as much of there's not much of an opportunity there for them because the assets are 3D. But if it's 2D assets, those are easier to host. Because a comic is 2D, Palm has a very good opportunity there where they could maybe change the way that the asset is accessed. And I think people would maybe value it more if they did it that way. But, I would probably still go for the Superman.
What do you think of the way they rolled it out with their different variations in terms of, gradation and it getting degraded?
Oh, I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of that because
No, I kind of like it.
yeah, because I personally, now it's my personal preference. So some people prefer the degraded thing, but I've never been a fan of Vivi doing the same character in different poses. And to me, when I saw the exact same comic book but in different shades of yellow with like a bit of like like a bit of ruffling up, I was like, oh, it looks it comes across as kind of lazy to me. Like I would so much have preferred if they did the OG comic cover, maybe if they kept the legendary OG or whatever one, and they had like alternative covers like that. I like that more as opposed to the same cover but in like different shades of yellow, with like a bit of like ruffling up.
I kind of like it. I like the fact that it's different from
Mm.
VV. They're not doing the same exact thing. And I
That's
also,
true, yeah.
it's interesting that everyone likes the uncommon.
Mm. Oh,
Which
because it's got the date printed on it, right?
Yeah, it's got the
Yeah,
date, so
yeah.
it's got that nice touch.
Mm.
And when everyone hates the uncommon on VV, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what? I think so the uncommon is like, I like that one as well for the same reason, because there is a bit more distinction to it. It's got the date
Yeah.
printed. I think the ones that kind of annoy me are the epic and the legendary. They look way too like, one is just a very slightly paler shade of yellow.
Yeah.
And that, I think they could change something there. They could make, maybe make the legendary look better, or maybe make the epic just look different. I think they can definitely work with something there. But the uncommon, I agree. Like the fact that the dates on there, there's more distinctive. I think, like they just need a little bit more variance between them, and it would be better in my opinion.
Then I wonder if maybe it'd be too hard to do to give them all their own unique differences, for those degraded ones. It would be interesting because that looks like someone's real. It'd be interesting to like each one looks like a real, physical copy. And
You actually reminded me, for the Vivi comics, did you catch when Dan was asked about the comics in showrooms? And he mentioned that for the comics in showrooms, you have the ability to place them in slabs and then stick them in your showroom.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that to me, I think is really, really cool. Like if Palm does something like that, because they're degraded.
Yeah.
If they ever did something like, I don't know, like a slab kind of thing, like you could have a slab slapped on top. I think that would look cool, especially with like the kind of like slightly degraded ones. I think they even do I didn't know they did K-pop as well. That's pretty insane. Oh yeah, we should probably hop on the AMA and see what's happening. And we've also been going for over an hour. I didn't even plan to go for this long. It's been an hour 20 now. But yeah, I think we'll end it there. That was a good chat. Thanks for everyone who came in and listened. I really appreciate you guys. We'll jump onto the AMA in Twitter. But yeah, thanks guys. And tomorrow, I think I'll actually stream the Hero team. So I'm going to be at MCM Comic Con London. I'll give you guys a hint as what I will cosplay as. I don't know if you can maybe tell where this is from.
No, where's this? At Assassin's Creed or something?
Oh no. It's actually from an anime.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if people will be able to tell. It's an anime that I really like. It's an anime that Dan Crovers also really likes.
Is it like hentai?
Oh no, that's not that stuff. But yeah, you see tomorrow. I might actually I might just post like a random picture of me like with one of my NFTs, because Vivi's doing a Halloween contest. Even though this anime isn't in Vivi, I'll do it anyway, just to like harass David and Dan a bit.
Yeah,
but yeah, it should be fun. Oh yes, someone got it. Demon Slayer. There we go. You got it. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll stream that tomorrow, so I'll let you guys know. Do a bit of a quick AMA, show you guys some chapter 2 stuff, and maybe a bit of stuff in Comic-Con as well. But yeah, thanks so much, guys. I'll see you guys next time.
See you around. Good chatting.